So this happened today of all days. I was bored figuring out what to do as I chatted on the SMWC forums. We had some good times and some good laughs, and out of curiosity I wanted to look at the hacks waiting to be moderated section of the site. It seems like we had a few, 33 if I recall exactly. The first few were extremely bad, with horrible screenshots to boot. I showed some of them to the other moderators, and we had a laugh about how bad some of them were. I stumbled across a hack just called Mario, and as for the description, it looked like a Japanese individual had tried translating the basic plot of the game into English, albeit failing very badly. I showed this to Kevin, and he began laughing about how bad it was, as the description went as follows. As you play as the role of Super Mario Plumber, ensure beautiful, once again, Bowser has kidnapped the evil king and you must go to save her. This hack includes 6 levels that are very long. I dismissed this as someone pretending to be Japanese and released a crappy hack, or so I thought at first. Curiosity got the better of me and I decided to download the ROM, since the title screen showed on the page wasn't enough to satisfy my curiosity. The main menu screen was just Mario on a black background, with the ROM of that being Super Mario World, just heavily edited, and I thought that it was odd that there was no dates on it or anything, either seeing as hackers usually put the name and dates on the title screens of their projects to mark when they began and finished, some of them, but this one lacked either. So once it was downloaded, I was greeted with 2 files. A simple text file which was called a string of random numbers, and the ROM which was simply titled Mario. I was curious about if the author had anything to say, so I opened the text file in Notepad, only to be greeted with an incomprehensible jumble of letters and numbers, like if you were to copy the entirety of a ROM into a text file, and it looked like the creator had done that, but upon a closer look at the top section of the text, I managed to make out the phrase, "Find me, find me, find me." To be honest, I don't know what it meant, and I just assumed the author had put the file there as a way to waste my time by trying to make me look for words among the various letters and so on. That I'm willing to bet no one else will make any sense of. Then decided to look through my horribly organised downloads to find a copy of a clean ROM of the game, which I'd taken a lot of time downloading before the events today had unfolded. And once I had everything ready, patching the ROM, not knowing what it contained, and expected, booting up the game in an NES emulator. Upon boot up, I noticed the author had taken the time to change the header of the tab. Instead of it being the usual Super Mario World, if you were to boot it up in an emulator, it was just changed to Mario in all caps there again. At this point, I had a bit of hope, since most people who make crappy ROMs don't usually know how to change the header title, or even bother to do so in some cases. My mood had brightened slightly, as I was now interested in what the author had created in this hack. Once I pressed start and selected a save file, like I'd done in countless other ROMs, I was taken into an intro screen that basically summarised the entire plot. However, that had been changed to the following paragraphs. Greetings, this is Dinosaur Land. We find that Princess Toadstool has been kidnapped. Looks like Mario is at it again. As I read the text, I noticed that the antagonist wasn't Bowser like you'd expect, but rather it was Mario, which I found extremely odd, but pressed onwards, the next screen changing to the usual level select screen. Upon entering the overworld, all seemed normal, same level paths, same background music, however the level names had been changed. For example, instead of Yoshi's house, like seen in the original Super Mario World, it was just changed to say Yoshi, with the house part being gone, and to lose a bit of hope in the hack, considering so far, besides some small changes, not much else so far looked different from the original game. I was hoping to see something new, and unluckily for me, I got my wish. I decided to enter the level out of curiosity and was met with nothing. The treehouse that was usually there was gone, and the only thing that was there was a message box, and upon hitting it I was met with what appeared to be binary, and instead of the usual note written by Yoshi, it apparently said Notepad, and at this point I was telling everyone online how this hack was weirding me out, which in and of itself wielded some sarcastic responses. Anyway, at this point my interest in the game had skyrocketed, but so did my paranoia. I decided to head left, and what was originally known as Yoshi's Island 1 had been replaced with the title Never Come Back. Now I thought this was going to turn into a Kaizo Death Trap hack, considering those ROMs have level titles like that. But to my surprise it wasn't like that though, but I wish it was. Once I entered level 105, I was greeted by the insanely loud clown car sound that Bowser's flying vehicle makes as soon as Peach falls out of it, and of course my headphones being moderately high, so it scared the living daylights out of me. As I progressed through the level, I noticed that besides the music, the level seemed normal, well, with the exception that all the enemies were missing from the level. There was a dragon coin in the stage, however I was unable to collect it, as it was out of reach. Now at this point I was wondering why the level was like this, and thought back to the intro message. Did Mario do something that caused this? I thought to myself, as I proceeded through the level, completing it in the process. I beat the level and moved Mario up the path to the yellow switch palace. However, as I did it, it was only then that I noticed all the other landmass besides the ghost from the ghost house and Yoshi's Island itself was gone. And as for the switch palace stage, nothing had changed besides the message upon hitting the switch, which was rather boringly just the text Mario World, with nothing else of note there. Just when I thought I could finish playing, I noticed that Yoshi's Island 2 was also edited. Oh joy, I thought to myself, and upon moving Mario to the stage, I noticed that the title had changed to Yoshi's House, the original name for level 104. Entering the level, I noticed that the palette and background of the level had been changed into the same palette as Yoshi's Island 3, you know, the greenish tan and such, except the background had been pushed down a little bit and was a rotting brown colour, and the vegetation on the foreground was no longer present. Unlike the other levels, there was a familiar trail of Koopas, which countless players had got free 1-ups from, which I ignored as I continued through the level, and beyond that, the enemies were sparse, like there being a few moles or chucks in some places, but nothing else. I came across the question mark block that held Yoshi and decided to hit it, only to see the text box there was also changed. Hooray, thank you for saving me. While I was looking for my friends, Mario had trapped me in this egg. At this point, my mind was running wild with thoughts. Did Mario do so much damage to Dinosaur Land that it resulted in this? At this point, I was immensely curious, and with what the creator of the ROM had in mind, and I stupidly took the bait. And at this point, I was in the WMC forums were filled with my discoveries so far. However, no one at the time seemed to be online, so it was just me there. And as I continued through the level, I noticed that there was another text box. Hitting it made the following box of paragraph appear. But is there anything I can do to change your mind? I was confused about what Mario and what he did, or was Yoshi still talking to me? As I progressed further in the stage, it became less and less like before. Even the pipes were gone. However, I saw another message box, and just like the rest, I got another cryptic message. Point of advice: this is the selfish way out. At this point, I thought the game was telling me to stop playing, but I knew that there was more to this hack. Perhaps I'd get some answers, I thought to myself. At this point, I'd spent enough time looking around. Me and Yoshi, I still had him at the time, opened up the path to the next level, and it had changed. What once was Yoshi's Island 3 was now Yoshi's Island 7, and it briefly made me remember some other hacks in which people had changed the titles to have large jumps in between level numbers, albeit this one was less comedic. As I entered the level, I was met with a black background and a floor which was blue and grey, and looked like it had been frozen, and a long expansive hall of a stage with practically nothing, well except for the goal point, and I quickly lost interest and finished the level. Once beaten, what was once known as Yoshi's Island 4 was changed to Leave Now, I was wondering if I should progress further in the game, but my interest kept me going. The level seemed normal, however there was no water below the pits, meaning I'd have to use Yoshi as a sacrifice, and the level, like the rest, were void of enemies. However, when it came to a large jump, I found that I could walk on air, meaning I didn't have to sacrifice Yoshi. I got to the pipe leading to the exit, and all seemed the same, or so I thought, as I saw another message box. Once again I hit and saw the following text: "If you get, you cut. If you at the end. If you collect, you can." Now this message really stumped me as I had no clue what it meant at all. With that level beaten, the path opened up to the first boss tower. However, the title was no longer Number 1 Yugi's Castle, but was now Number 1 Go Back. The intro was normal, but once inside, things were changed. There was a greyish lava on the ceiling, and multiple message boxes were in front of Mario alongside spare checkpoint goals, in between what looked like pillars. A majority of the boxes had blank or Yoshi signatures, and the level was just a long hallway. However, one message was as followed: "Don't you think you've caused enough trouble?" Another cryptic message for sure. I continued forward until I ended up standing Mario at a door which led to another segment of the level. At first I thought I had to jump into the pit in front of me, but then I realised that water scroll was going, and I had to jump to the next segment, avoiding large crushing pillars until ending up at another door, which was a boss door, and I was right. I was transported to the boss fight area with Iggy, which I defeated in 2 hits, which was probably the most quickest I'd ever beat him at. The egg rescue screen appeared after, and for once I thought the hack was normal again. However, that changed quickly as the text slowly appeared, looking like something out of a case file for a murder. Victim 1, eyeballs were unable to be found. The victim was found lying in her home. Cause of death is unknown. Unidentified handprints found all over the corpse. What the hell? I thought to myself, my mind buzzing with horror. Did Mario do this? Was that what the author was trying to say? And was the victim Princess Toadstool? At this point I assumed the run would end, but one final level opened up. The name was unchanged and was just Donut Plains 1. The path tiles were still there despite the overworld land being missing. One last time I moved Mario to the level and entered it, to be greeted with a black background and cement floor, alongside a row of small doors. However, Mario was given a mushroom, so we couldn't enter them. I ran along the long hall until I found 2 message boxes, its content contradicting the other. "You cannot escape this hell," and "Fly away." Both messages confusing me even more as I moved Mario forward, leading to a dead end. I tried moving forward against the concrete blockade, and the pipe animation and sound played. To my surprise, looking like Mario was walking into darkness, the screen changing to another one like the last with the concrete floor and a large pit. Jumping in it, it was filled. I pressed down in multiple places until one spot where the same noise and animation played, with Mario slowly being sunken into the floor. The screen then changed to nothing, and I couldn't do anything at this point. Pausing, couldn't do anything, and my controller wasn't responding. The game had come to an end, and Mario had died? The game froze up, and for a split moment a brief flash appeared on my screen before closing out to the desktop. Everything was still as it seemed, thankfully, and the message board seemed more active than before, as I continued to discuss what I just saw, which still shook me to my core, but more so was the haunting image another one of the members found in the game. Files, shortly after,